Aloha, welcome back to Aina Bear Farm. It's been a while since our last video, but been really busy. That's been part of the reason. Also got sick, so that was fun. Not COVID, so I appreciate that. But feeling better now and getting back to work out here. So I just wanted to do a video today to talk a little bit more in depth about our conversion of our pasture to a food forest. And next video will probably be a bigger tour of how things are coming along in that area that we're working on. But today I want to focus on specifically some of the processes of how we turn this resource of the pasture grass into something that we can use to build our forest soil. And so where I'm standing right now is a patch that's recently been cleared. And so you kind of see behind me, this is all guinea grass, which is a large pasture grass that can get out here. I don't know, I've seen it get up to 8 or 9 feet maybe. And then it starts to get really wet and fall over. You can of course have cows, horses, sheep, goats, whatever come out here and eat this stuff. But then you have to move the fencing around, take care of the animals, just it adds a lot of extra work. So rather than deal with all of that, on the scale that I'm working with, which is about a 3-acre site for the pasture, it seems like it makes more sense to just mow the grass with a brush mower and then use that as a mulch for the areas where I'm going to be planting the trees. And so the first thing we do when we open up a new section is to just clear the grass, and that way we can see what we're working with and space the trees out appropriately. We have our trees spaced at about 20 feet apart with sort of an X pattern where, if this was to be a fruit tree, then just about 10 feet or so diagonal from here would be a smaller circular area we would cut out, and there we would put a support tree, a nitrogen fixer, a biomass builder, something like Gliricidia we're using, pigeon pea, Tithonia diversiflora, the Mexican sunflower, banana trees, and all those things. Ice cream bean. We're just sticking those in the in-between spots to create some shade, to fix some nitrogen, to create some biomass for chop and drop later on. Basically to start changing this ecosystem from a pasture, which I understand is bacterially dominated, to something that's more fungal dominated. And what I've noticed is in spots where we have already started to convert, we're seeing a lot more mushrooms pop up. Of course, the mulch is breaking down, adding organic material to the soil. And in a few spots, we have had enough of a canopy build to start getting some shade around the soil to suppress the grass growth overall. But we're still very much in the early stages of digging out a lot of this grass and replacing it with some ground covers and some other just more diverse plants, so that it's not such a monoculture out here, to kind of just get it ready for our trees. So the next step for this stage here will be to plant those support trees and give them some time to get a little bit bigger, so that next winter they'll have a little bit of canopy to them, and we can go ahead and plant our fruit trees. Probably cut back those support trees for the rest of the winter to open it up, because the sun, it's still pretty close to tropical here, but it's not that as nearly as strong in the winter here on the Big Island of Hawaii. And so we can open it up, let the fruit trees grow a little bit, and then let those support trees grow their canopy back in time for summer to provide some of that shade. And so I also want to talk about how we use the grass in certain areas to just build compost, which we can, feed in different places where we need it. So we'll go take a look at that really quick. So here what we have is a section that we're not going to be planting with full-size trees. We may come back eventually and put some perennial crops in here, something that doesn't require a lot of intensive care, because it would be where the location of where this is would be really tough to run irrigation to it, and I don't want to create a lot more work for myself. This would be kind of like a zone 3 area on a permaculture map, and I don't want to create a lot of high intensity work for myself in this area. So at least for the short run, I plan on just keeping it somewhat mowed, just to kind of keep the grass down. And for now, we can kind of leave it still a grassland ecosystem, but it's still a resource. So what I do is I mow the grass, I collect it, and then I build a compost bin like you may have seen in some of our previous videos, where we just layer this with the grass and cow manure, grass, cow manure. So manure is obviously one of the really good byproducts of having your own animals grazing in your pasture. But as I mentioned a minute ago, that also comes with a lot of responsibilities for taking care of those animals. So for me, I just go and collect the manure in other places. My neighbors have their own grazing animals, and I can just grab the manure like right along the fence line. And it's plenty to build these bins on a regular basis. And I basically just build them and let them sit for a while. This one's been here for maybe a month, and I had filled it up over the rim here. It's already dropped about a foot. And as we get more and more rain throughout the winter, it's just going to keep decomposing, and I'll flip it maybe 2 times. And at that point, it'll be pretty usable compost mulch, where some of this grass is still thick enough to provide like a surface layer mulch, but that manure in there will really add a nice richness to the soil. And then we can haul this up to our kitchen garden. We can feed this to the fruit trees as needed. But it's just another way of using this grass as a really good resource, kind of building fast, fertile soil really quickly. So now we'll go and take a look at the next step in what we talked about a moment ago, where after we clear the areas for fruit trees, how we kind of prepare those sites to plant the trees. So let's check that out. I just wanted to really quick show you what the grass looks like before we start to clear it. So this is grass that's been left here for, I guess, say about 1.5 years. Haven't done anything to it, haven't mowed it, haven't grazed any animals through here. So it gets pretty thick. It's pretty hard to cut at this point. A scythe is just not going to do it. You need a brush cutter or a mower or something along those lines that will cut the really thick, kind of strong carbon heavy stalks in there. So yeah, just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what that guinea grass looks like when we start. It is not easy to clear one of these sections, but it's very useful once we do. So what we have here is a site that was cleared, I believe, about 2 to 3 months back. And so this is kind of like the succession that I was talking about, where we had mowed the grass. So this grass has been mowed probably as recently as maybe a month ago, and then it just shoots up the more thin seed heads, which are much easier to mow if you stay on top of it and keep going back and maintaining it. And so once we mowed it, we dug out one area of grass with a mattock axe, so to get rid of the roots and all that, and then piled up that area with the cut grass. Big pile, is probably 3 feet or so high. And then we just let that start to break down. So that is locking moisture into the soil. It's feeding it with organic material, because the soil here, not a lot of organic material out of the gate. So we really need as much as we can. And it's also creating a little bit of a fungal habitat, which we'll see in just a second. I do want to mention really quickly that another thing that we do is we try to go ahead and plant some supporting plants around if we can. So I've got this sun hemp planted around here. This is a really beautiful variety of sun hemp, really nice round leaves and gorgeous flower stalks. This is a nitrogen fixer. So in the meantime, it's pumping nitrogen into the ground. It's attracting bees and beneficial insects. It's providing a little bit of shade. These actually do get somewhat woody here, and they will keep growing, and they'll make a little bit of a windbreak too, which is important because this is a windy site. And so by the time the tree is ready to go in, which may be sometime this winter, depending on if I can get the right tree that I want for this spot, these will be a little bit big, provide some windbreak, they'll be feeding nitrogen into the soil, and then this grass will be broken down quite a bit and adding some organic material. So let's kind of take a look underneath here and see what I'm talking about in terms of adding the organic material. So when we peel this back, one of the things you hopefully can notice is the mycelial fungus that's starting to grow here, which is a really good sign. That means that it's breaking down this material. It's turning this into a fungal dominant soil, which will really benefit the fruit tree once it's planted. And then we haven't had rain in a few days. Look, there's a beautiful worm in there. This soil though is super moist and it's starting to cake, which I know this may not seem like a big deal to a lot of you. Like, this is what probably a lot of normal your soil looks like. But here, this is a big deal because when we first got here, I could not do this with any of my soil. It was like holding sand. It would just crumble right through your fingers. And now we're starting to get enough organic material in there that's providing a little bit more stickiness to it. So it's a really good sign, something I'm really happy about. So we'll just walk over. Well, I also did want to point out really quickly, I mentioned support trees. This behind me is a banana that we put in very recently. And that is just a keiki or a pup that we cut off of the mother plant. And this is a variety that gets pretty big. My full-grown ones up the hill are probably 15 feet tall. And so that'll provide a lot of shade, a lot of biomass. It will grow in a clump where it'll shoot out other keiki. And eventually I can decide if I want to cut them all down and feed those to my fruit tree here. So, you know, just take that biomass and move it here. I can allow some of them to fruit and get some bananas if I need to, but as we're putting them in all over the property, we should have plenty of bananas, and then I can decide which ones I want to keep and which ones I want to use for biomass. So just another example of how we're preparing the site for fruit trees. And so as we look over just kind of about 20 feet up, we've got another site where we've already planted one of our fruit trees. So I just want to take a quick look at that. So this site was prepared at the same time as the other, but I had the tree that I wanted in here. This is a Namdakmai mango. So I'm excited about that. A nice variety I've been looking for. You can see again, the sun hemp will provide some windbreak on this side. May get tall enough to provide a little bit of afternoon shade at some point if I decide to leave it. And also got a little ground cover coming in here to provide some diversity and some multiple uses. This is a Cuban oregano, and so that'll start to spread across the ground. Just again to provide some diversity, add some extra shade, keep the grass from growing back in. Another thing we add in a lot of these areas is comfrey, just to hold the grass back, because once we've done all the work to clear all this, you know, we don't want the grass to fight its way back in. That's just a big pain in the butt. But this tree is off and running now. It's really happy with the preparation that we've done. This mulch will continue to break down, and then as we keep going, we'll come through and cut this grass periodically and then just heap it back to the pile. And eventually, as we make our way in, hard to see probably from there, but got a little Gliricidia over here that we're growing from cutting. So another support tree. This will grow really fast. So next winter, this will have branches that could be 15 feet long, create a lot more shade. It's a nitrogen fixer. So these are dotted again in that X pattern across the landscape. The in-between grasses will start to get shadier and shadier and won't grow as vigorously, but we'll keep cutting them as long as they do grow. But eventually it'll come and start filling those intermediate spaces in with other plants as well. And long term, when they're fruit trees, a little bit bigger canopy, these interim spaces will become shadier spots for things like coffee and cacao and ginger, turmeric, useful plants that like it a little bit more shade. So I hope you enjoy the video. Hopefully that's useful for you or just interesting. If you have a pasture space that you're interested to convert, it does take some time. I mean, I don't think that you can speed up the process of kind of flipping an ecosystem entirely overnight, but with patience and persistence, you can definitely use the resources that you have in your space to your benefit. And so I definitely recommend it if you live in a place where a pasture is not necessarily the natural ecosystem. Here we get 90 inches of rain a year. That's not pasture area, that's rainforest essentially, or close to. So a forest is much better suited for this area than a pasture. And so that's part of the reason that we're so excited. That's part of the reason, I guess, that makes it restorative agriculture. We're not trying to like force this area into an ecosystem that it doesn't want to be. Pasture works okay here as long as you keep the animals out here to graze it, but that's not the agricultural system that we're going for here. So hopefully that info is useful to you. Shoot some comments, questions in the comments section if you have any, and keep an eye out for a nice tour video that we'll have coming soon. And until then, we'll see you here back at Ina Bear Farm. Aloha.